Hi, hello. Today you will get voiceover Adele because I want to talk about tools and materials that I use for making ball joint dolls. I get asked a lot about what you need to start sculpting dolls, so I hope I can answer it all in this video. I also want to show that you actually don't need that much to start. Later on you can invest into additional tools, but for the beginners, the kit is quite minimal. We will start with clay. I use air dry clay, so I'll recommend my favorites in that regard, but you can sculpt dolls from polymer clay too. It's just not my preference. If you decide to choose air dry clay, make sure to purchase stone clays like Ladol Premix or Premier. These clays have less paper pulp, so you won't get as much annoying fibers that other paper clays have. And the premix clay that I have here was actually formulated by a doll artist. What I like about air dry clays is how forgiving they are. You can sculpt and resculpt the same piece many times by adding and cutting off the clay. It's easy to sand, and I use a lot of carving techniques that help me to achieve miniature details like nails or very realistic lips. Next, you will need sculpting tools. I like metal ones that can be used for wax carving as well, mostly because they come in many shapes and with very precise tips. They can be used for carving the clay or shaping difficult parts like the eyelids or nose. The flat tips are great for sculpting larger pieces, for example the torso or the hips. Some of them are bent in a way that it's very nice to sculpt hard to get areas. I have maybe 4 sculpting tools that are my most used, so you don't need a huge collection of them. I have some silicone tools as well. They are probably more used with polymer clay, but they can be quite handy as well. Another staple in my kit is a scalpel or a precision knife. With air dry clay, I like to carve when the clay has dried already, and it really helps for detailing too. Also, if you make ball jointed dolls, you will always need to cut something, for example when shaping the sockets or cutting the slits for the elastics. That's why air dry clay is nice too. It's easy to cut and carve, and a good precision knife helps with that too. The very pointy and sharp tip is great for carving tiny details or cleaning up some hard-to-get-to areas. Invest into a knife that has changeable blades, so you can always have a sharp tool on hand. Next on the list is sanding paper. Everyone's least favorite part, but unfortunately it's unavoidable. Have an assortment of sanding paper from coarse to very soft ones. I like to have sanding paper and sanding sponges for different areas of the doll. You can fold sanding paper into a very pointy triangle and reach every crevice that needs sanding. The sanding sponges are more comfortable to hold when sanding larger areas. So if you see a progress picture where the sculpted doll is incredibly smooth, just know it took many hours of sanding to reach that. Have a mask to protect yourself from dust, Put on a good podcast and prepare yourself for this tedious task. Have a few different brushes on hand when sculpting with air dry clay. I have a medium one to help me smooth out the clay, then a flat larger one that I use to coat the doll with water after sanding, just to remove excess dust and smooth out any remaining fibers. A tiny brush is very helpful when shaping small details where metal tools can be too harsh. I use brushes a lot when sculpting. They work great when I need to smooth out the clay in hard to get to areas. They also help to shape the clay when sculpting miniature details. Brushes are helpful for carving process as well. I use a damp brush to soften the clay and smooth out the harsh lines after carving. If you want to sculpt your own balls for joints, I use circle template for that. I like this method a lot, but it only works with air dry clay. Sculpt a rough ball and leave it to dry fully. Usually it takes 24 hours. Then put clay balls into some water. You only want for the outer layer to become soft again. Then using the circle template, shape the outer layer and you will have a perfect clay ball. This tool is completely optional, but if you sculpt often, then you might want to invest into a Dremel Rotary tool. It can be useful around the house too. Dremel tool comes with lots of attachments and you can use it for sanding, cutting and drilling the clay. I use it to shape the joint sockets, drill the joints before stringing the doll and cutting the slits for elastic. It makes your job easier and much faster. It might be useful for your other hobbies too, so look into the attachment it has. Maybe you like to try glass or wood carving because you can get miniature bits for all your carving needs. I got it just when I was started to make ball jointed dolls. It's been 7 years and it still works great. And the last on the list is primer. I use grey primer to coat every prototype I sculpt. I'm sure there's white ones as well, if your dolls are one of a kind, because grey primer might be hard to paint on. Grey primer is useful to hide any small imperfections that clay might have. It makes the surface very smooth and ready for mold making. It makes the clay stronger too, so your doll or prototype will be less fragile. So when you see pictures of grey dolls, they are probably coated with primer. The brand Mr. Surfacer is very popular among doll makers, but it's hard to get in Lithuania, so I use off-brand version of that. I hope this overview was useful. There will be links for all the materials in the description below. And if you want to learn how to sculpt ball jointed dolls, check out my masterclass. Here you'll find step-by-step instructions on how to sculpt one using air dry clay. Thank you so much for watching and see you next time!